Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janmalava Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janmalava Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tire Vanachari Yamuna Tire Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yamuna Tire Vanachari Jaya Yamuna Tire Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jagannathai Baladevai Jaya Subhadra Jaya Radha Vallabha Shri Radhe Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Nitai Gaur Premanande Hare Bol Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudihre Nasta Praishu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So we are reading from Canto 5, Chapter 12, Verse 2. The chapter entitled Conversation between Maharaj Ravugana and Shada Bharata. Jvara mayartasya yatha gadamsa Jvara mayartasya yatha gadamsa Nidaga dagdasya yatha himambaha Nidaga dagdasya yatha himambaha Kudeha manahi vedashta drishte Kudeha manahi vedashta drishte Brahman vachaste amritam aushadam me Brahman vachaste amritam aushadam me Jvara mayartasya yatha gadamsa Nidaga dagdasya yatha himambaha Kudeha manahi vidashta drishte Brahman vachaste amritam aushadam me Jvara mayartasya yatha gadamsa Brahman vachaste amritam aushadam me Jvara mayartasya yatha gadamsa Nidagda dagdasya yatha himambaha Kudeha manahi vidashta drishte Brahman vachaste amritam aushadam me Jvara mayartasya yatha gadamsa Nigada dagdasya yatha himambaha Kudeha manahi vidashta drishte Brahman vachaste amritam aushadam me Mataji. Jvara mayartasya yatha gadamsa Nidagha dagdasya yatha himambaha Word for word meaning. Jvara, of the fever. Amaya, by the disease. Amritasya, Artasya, of a distressed person. Yatha, just as. Agadam, the medicine. Sat, right. Nidaga dagdasya, of one scorched by the heat of the sun. Yatha, just as. Hima amba, very cold water. Kudeha, in this body, made of matter and full of dirty things, such as stool and urine. mana of pride, ahi, by the serpent, vidashta, beaten, drishte, of one whose vision, Brahman, O best of the Brahmanas, vacha, words, te, your, amritam, nectar, aushadam, medicine, me, for me. It's interesting here, medicine is mentioned twice. One is ausadam, means medicine, and agadam, the medicine. O best of the Brahmanas, my body is filled with dirty things, and my vision has been bitten by the serpent of pride. Due to my material conceptions, I am diseased. Your nectarian instructions are the proper medicine for one suffering from such a fever, and they are cooling waters for one scorched by the heat. Please repeat. O best of the Brahmanas, my body is filled with dirty things, and my vision has been bitten by the serpent of pride. Due to my material conceptions, I am diseased. Your nectarian instructions are the proper medicine for one suffering from such a fever, and they are cooling waters for one scorched by the heat. Purport. The conditioned soul has a body full of dirty things, bones, blood, urine, stool, and so forth. Nonetheless, the most intelligent men in this material world think they are this combination of blood, bone, urine, and stool. If this is so, why can't other intelligent men be made with these ingredients which are so readily available? The entire world is going on under the bodily conception and creating a hellish condition unfit for any gentleman's living. The instructions given to King Rahugana by Jada Bharata are very valuable. They are like the medicine that can save one from the snake bite. The Vedic instructions are like nectar and cool water for one suffering from scorching heat. Om Agnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tashmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Caitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sahagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarvesha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. O best of the Brahmanas, my body is filled with dirty things, and my vision has been bitten by the serpent of pride. Due to my material conceptions, I am diseased. Your nectarian instructions are the proper medicine for one suffering from such a fever, and they are cooling waters. For one scorched by the heat. So we are seeing from last 3 chapters here. There is a conversation going on between Maharaj Rahugana and Jada Bharata. So we understand the pastime, how it flows. Jada Bharata has been moving unknown. He was Maharaj Bharata before, and then because of attachment to the deer, he had to take a body of a deer, and then in the next life he got a body of human form, which is Jad Bharata. And since he had got a remembrance of his past life, how he had fallen down in his past life from the Bhava platform as Maharaj Bharata, just because of the affection of the deer, he didn't want to get affected to anyone. So he kept himself aloof from all the material association, and he just acted as if he was deaf and dumb. So now he was wandering around in this material world as a Avaduta, and he was caught by few soldiers to carry the palanquin. At that point, Jad Bharata was concerned about the ants, so he was not walking properly. He was not carrying the palanquin properly because he was jumping around because of the ants. And Maharaj Rahugana became angry. So we know from 10th chapter, which is the discussion between Jad Bharata and Maharaj Rahugana. In that chapter, Maharaj Rahugana first is sarcastically chastising him, jokingly. He's saying that you appear to be carrying this palanquin for a long time, it seems like, but he had just come. But Maharaj Rahugana is sarcastically chastising him that you have appear to be fatigued by carrying this palanquin for a long time. But still Jad Bharata could not understand, or he did not bother about what Maharaj Rahugana is saying. And then Maharaj Rahugana says, you are old, not so stout, your body is weak, even though Jad Bharata was in his youth and strong. So Maharaj Rahugana is again chastising. After that Maharaj Rahugana becomes a little bit serious because he's still not listening. So Maharaj Rahugana is saying, are you dead despite of life? Because he was not responding to anything that Maharaj Rahugana was saying. So Maharaj Rahugana is saying, are you dead despite of life within your body? And then he goes even higher, saying that, do you not know that I am your master? And then finally, when still Jad Bharata did not respond, Maharaj Rahugana is saying, you are mad. For this disobedience, I will punish you. So because you have been disobedient, you are not responding, or you are not acting to what I have said, I will punish you. At that point, Jad Bharata responds. And all his questions or all his comments that Maharaj Rahugana had put forth, he is answering. He is saying that I am the spirit soul, and this fatigue has nothing to do with the soul. It is for the body, and I am aloof from the body. So it doesn't matter. This body and fatigue are not mine. And then he is saying, bodily designations like fat, stout, thinness, weakness, all this does not apply to the spirit soul, because I am separate from that. And then he is saying, everything material has a beginning and end. And master servant, because Maharaj Rahugana said, I am your master, you should listen to me. And to that Jad Bharata is saying, this master-servant relationship is just temporary and conventional. Basically, it's with this life, it will finish, and next life I might be your master and you might be my servant. And then finally saying that you are saying that I am mad. So even if I am mad, what is the use of punishing me? If you punish a madman, it's not going to rectify him in any way. So what is the use of punishing me? It is mentioned like two people are always in bliss. The one is who is transcendentalist, who is aloof. We see here Jad Bharata was always in bliss, even though he was carried by the dacoits to be chopped off as a bali to goddess Durga, but he was still happy, he did not mind. So he was completely in bliss. And so two people, it is mentioned, are always in bliss. One is one who is transcendentalist, who is completely aloof from this material world. And the second one is a madman. So if you go to a mental asylum, you will see they are always laughing, joking, enjoying their life. They don't have any miseries in life. And some of them act as if they were prime minister or presidents. So they are always in bliss. So it is mentioned in Shastra, two people are always in bliss, transcendentalist and a madman. And that is what Jad Bharata is saying, that I am a self-realized person, but even if I am mad, what is the use of punishing me? So he is giving an example like it is like beating a dead horse. However hard you beat a dead horse is not going to run faster. Or grinding the flour. If you grind a flour, you are only going to get flour. What is the use? You are just wasting your energy. So he's giving all these arguments. And at that point, Maharaj Ravugana, it clicks. Oh, this is not what he looks like. This personality is not like a madman or a avaduta or some beggar. He's intelligent person. And so he's putting, just to test him, Maharaj Ravugana is putting some more arguments in front of Jad Bharata. He's saying, the soul appears fatigued due to bodily lustre, right? Due to bodily labor. Like the milk and the rice in a pot experience the heat. So when you heat the milk in the pot, even though the pot is heated, but the milk gets the effect of the pot. Even the milk gets boiling, right? Or if you have rice in the pot, when you heat the pot, even though the fire is just touching the pot, but also the rice gets cooked. And so he's giving this argument. So he's giving this argument because Jad Bharata had mentioned, like, I'm aloof from this body. So this fatigue has nothing to do with me. This fatigue and bodily weaknesses are just for the body, not for me. But here Maharaj Ravugana is saying, because you are in the body, you are still affected by this fatigue. So soul gets affected by the fatigue. Next point he is saying about master-servant relationship, which Jad Bharata mentioned, that it is temporary and conventional. This life I am your servant, next life you will be my servant. So it is very temporary. In that, Maharaj Ravugana is saying that it is king's duty as a ruler to punish his subjects, to look after his subjects, to correct his subjects. So he's talking about prescribed duty. So he's saying that if one is disobedient to the king's duty is to punish him. So he's also giving sastric relevance of punishing. Varnashram dharma, king is a duty, occupational duty, to punish his subjects. And then finally he's saying, engaging in one's occupational duty vanquishes the sin. Karma yoga, right? So one engages in his prescribed duty, he will get rid of sin. So Maharaj Ravugana is putting all this comments in front of Jad Bharata in chapter 10. And in the last chapter, what happens? Jad Bharata begins to instruct based on those points. So Jad Bharata is saying that materialistic people do not understand absolute truth. So he's directly mentioning this in the first verse itself. You are not very experienced. You pose yourself as a learned person, but because you are very proud of your knowledge, you are not so intelligent. Krishna exactly tells this similar verse in Bhagavad Gita 2.11, right? 2.11. Asochananva sochastvam pragnavajamsa bhasase gatasuna gatasumcha nanu sochanti pandita. So Krishna is saying to Arjuna that while speaking learned words, we are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. So exactly same thing Jad Bharata is speaking at the beginning of chapter 11. He's saying that you are speaking wise learned words, but you really don't know what real knowledge is, because you are proud of your knowledge. And then in the whole chapter basically is focusing on mind. How the mind is acting, how the mind is the cause of material entanglement. So he's saying mind contaminated by three modes is like uncontrolled elephant. So as the elephant is, when it becomes uncontrolled, you can't stop him. I've seen videos from Kerala, right, where sometimes the elephant goes mad and all they have to do is run away from him. They can't stop him. Even the person Mahut who controls the elephant, his owner, he also does not go near him. I saw one of the videos which, who's that Prabhu in Brisbane now? He showed me of his hometown where the elephant went mad. And that Mahut, the person who is the owner, he went to control him because he had so much of relationship with him. He thought, I'll be able to control him. And this elephant just picked him up and threw him and crushed him below his feet because of madness. And then it was shown in the video that after he came back to senses, this elephant was crying day and night for doing that. And it was showing like he was literally crying, like there were tears coming because he killed his own owner. So they've got very good relationship, but when they go mad, nobody can stop them. And so it is mentioned that mind is like that. If mind is contaminated by the three modes of material nature, it's like an uncontrolled mad elephant. So Jada Bharata is giving this example. And then he's saying, mind expands pious and impious activities through the knowledge of senses and working senses. Knowledge senses and working senses. So he's saying that all the senses, they just act under the control of the mind, which is uncontrolled. And then he's saying, mind keeps one in the material world to suffer and enjoy. And so it is only the mind which binds one to this material world. Mind is the cause of this samsara. One goes through different bodies in this material world just because of this mind. And mind causes bondage and liberation. So there is a very interesting point Jada Bharata mentions. Mind causes bondage, at the same time mind causes liberation, and he gives this example of a lantern. I'm not sure if you have seen a lantern in a village. I remember in my childhood when I used to, these days we don't see any lanterns here, but a lantern has, like when you ignite the flame, if it is not ignited properly, it will turn the whole glass black. It will just be dark and the whole glass from inside will be with carbon and black. But when the lantern is switched on or properly ignited, it illuminates the whole house. And so initially when you don't pump or don't have those wicks properly in the ghee or oil, then the whole lantern becomes black. So that same example Jada Bharata is giving, that the same mind can be the cause of bondage in this material world, turn it whole black, or it can illuminate one and liberate one from this material world. So when Jada Bharata is giving all these arguments and saying that it is this body is this person, soul is the Kshetrajna. He is within this body, he knows what's going on in the body. At the same time, there is another Kshetrajna who is the super soul, Paramatma, who is guiding the soul within this body. And finally in that chapter he is mentioning that how to control the mind. The first thing he is saying is to neglect the mind. If you get some demands from the mind, you should know that whether it's right or not, use your intelligence to see if it is not suitable for your spiritual life, it is not serving the Supreme Lord, then just neglect it. Neglect the demands of the mind. So he's saying three things are required. The first thing is to neglect the mind. Second thing he's saying, be attentive, be vigilant, be attentive to the demands of the mind. Be vigilant that you are not going sidetracked. Be attentive to the service. And the third thing he's mentioning is, cut the knot with the weapon of service to the Guru and Krishna. So these are the three things he's mentioning, how you can control the mind. So the first thing is, be neglectful. Neglect the demands of the mind. Immediately if you have, and most of the times as devotees we know what is right and wrong. We have studied Shastra, we have heard so many lectures. When these demands come into our mind, we know that this is not appropriate, or this is not going to help me in my spiritual life. So as soon as that thought we receive, do not dwell on the thought that let me think, because sometimes those thoughts are apparently giving us some pleasure, mental pleasure. So we continue to think over it. We continue to dwell over it. But a person who is intelligent, who is serious in spiritual life, he will immediately neglect it and divert his attention to something else. As kids, sometimes they demand something. So the easiest way is not to say them no. If you tell them no, they will say, no, I want it, I want it. They will keep hammering on that point. But the easiest way is to give them something else. Param drishva nivartate. Give them a higher taste or divert their attention to something else. And that way they will forget the original thing that they were demanding. So similarly the mind, we have to neglect it or divert it. And the second is be attentive. Be attentive. Apramata. And the third one, Jada Bharata is giving, with the weapon of service to Guru and Krishna, you can control the mind. So this is where last chapter ends. And we are in the beginning of 12th chapter. Now Maharaj Rahugana is completely convinced. Like this person, ordinary person can speak this philosophy to this extent. And since Maharaj Rahugana is devotional, so he automatically, he could understand the level of devotional level of Jada Bharata. So immediately got off this chariot, and now his offer is, in the last verse we heard yesterday, his offering his obeisances to Jada Bharata. He's surrendering onto him. And in this verse today, he is mentioning two parts. The first thing is saying, in the first section he is saying, what is my condition? So he's saying, my body is filled with dirty things. Kudheha. Kudheha means, kudha means, kudha kachara we say. Kudha means dirt. What is useless. And we know the pastime of Sleeping Beauty, right? In that pastime, once the prince was attracted to a princess and he offered her to marry. He proposed her to marry him. At that point, princess said, how about you come after a week or two, and then I'll accept your proposal. So the prince went off, said, okay, it's a good proposal, I'll come back in a week or two. And he went off. And this princess ate all these prerogatives where she vomited and loose motion and all those things. And in a couple of weeks, she lost all her luster. And she put all her vomit and stool and everything in a big pot. So when the prince came after 2 weeks, knocked on the door, the princess opened, and prince said, I have an appointment with the princess. And she was a princess, right? But what she did was, she took the prince to the pot and said, your princess is in this pot. So because of all those prerogatives she was eating, she lost all her luster. And the prince could not recognize her. And when he saw that, and he could understand what princess wanted to say. And so the point is, what we see externally is very temporary. So this story beautifully narrates how this body is filled with kudha, dirty things. And in this verse it is mentioned, Prabhupada is giving the conditioned soul has a body full of dirty things, bones, blood, urine, stool, and so forth. And Prabhupada is further explaining that if the intelligence people claim this to be everything, this is available freely, why can't they create another intelligent person with this all ingredients? So it's interesting. If you once I remember Devamrat Maharaj, who is here recently, tomorrow he's giving class, he showed a video of a person who was skinned. Just the skin had not there. Skin was not there on that person. There was a photograph of that person after he removed the skin. In one of his presentation, he was showing this. And once this 1 mm layer of over ourself is gone, you can imagine how beautiful or handsome we will look. You wouldn't even want to go and look at yourself. So Maharaj was making this point that this surface, the skin, is hiding, it's illusory, it's hiding what we really are made of. So once this 1 mm layer is gone, you wouldn't even want to look at yourself in the mirror. So we should not be proud of this skin that is there on our body. And Bhagavad Gita mentions how 6 kinds of transformation happens to the body, right? The body takes birth, grows, sustains, there are byproducts, then decays and death. So this is what the transformation goes on continuously. Very interesting point in 12th canto, 4th chapter, annihilation mentioned, right? 12th canto, 4th chapter, there are 4 kinds of annihilations are mentioned. The first one is niyamita, continuous annihilation. Niyamita, right? Yeah, there is continuous annihilation happening. Dehinosmin yathade kaumaram yovanam jara tatha dehantara prapte dhiras tatra namuyati. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, continuously a person is passed from his boyhood to youth to old age. There is continuously we are passing through different bodies. We don't realize we are passing through bodies. But if you look at the child, 5-year-old child is different, and we were different when we were 5. When we were 10, we were different, 15, 20, 40, 50, 60, 70. Yeah, we change our bodies continuously. We don't realize. So this is daily activity of changing our bodies. But we are still attached to this body. But in a year's time, everything in our body will be changed, replaced. So there is nothing to be attached to. So then there is Naimitika, like at the end of Brahma's day, and Krishna is giving this in 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is saying how Brahma bhuvana loke punaravartino Arjuna. Right from Lord Brahma, who has got the longest lifespan, it is mentioned that Brahma lives a one day of Brahma, which is known as a kalpa. There are 1,000 yuga cycles, and each yuga cycle, which consists of Satyuga, Treta, Dwapar, and Kali Yuga, this is 4.32 million years. So we are into the Kali Yuga phase of our yuga cycle, and Kali Yuga is the shortest yuga, which is 432,000 years. So one yuga cycle like that is 4.32 million years. Like that, one day of Brahma is 1,000 yuga cycle. So how much is that? Sorry? Yeah, 4.32 million is one yuga cycle. So 1,000 yuga cycle is? That's right, very good. You must have seen billions. These days we don't see billions, so we don't know. But 1 million multiplied by 1,000 is 1 billion. So one day of Brahma is 4.32 billion years. So just one day of Brahma is our 4.32 billion years. And like that is the night of Brahma. And like that Brahma lives for 100 years. So the life of Brahma is so long. But it is mentioned, Brahma, Krishna is saying in a chapter, Brahma bhuvana loke, even Brahma has to die and take birth again. Right from Brahma to the lowest insect have to continuously die. And it is mentioned this Naimitika annihilation happens at the end of Brahma's day. When Brahma's one day finishes, everything gets destroyed and goes into the body of Vishnu. So this is Naimitika. So Nitya annihilation is, we are continuously going into different bodies within this life. Naimitika is like from after the day of Brahma, one kalpa, everything gets annihilated. And then there is Prakritika. Prakritic annihilation is when the life of Brahma finishes, everything gets annihilated and go back into Pradhan, Mahatattva. And then again the creation happens. The whole universe is destroyed and again the universe is created at the end of 100 years of Brahma. And then it is mentioned, there is Antyatika. Antya annihilation is when you become liberated. So that is the fourth level of liberation where you don't have to take birth again. So Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita, Brahma bhuvana loke punaravartino Arjuna mam upete tu konteya punar janmana vidyate. So once you attain me, you don't have to come back to this material world again. So this is what Maharaj Rahugana is mentioning, that this body is kuda. So now he's Jad Bharata is saying that his body is kuda. So this verse is spoken by Maharaj Rahugana. So he's saying that my body, he's confessing. First, in the first verse, he's offering his obeisances, and in this verse, he's saying that now he has realized, like whom he's speaking to. He's not speaking to some beggar. He's speaking to someone who is very transcendentalist. So he's accepting him as a spiritual master. So when you accept, you go in front of your spiritual master, you speak the truth. You don't, you keep everything external outside, and you just speak whatever is truth. Whatever you reveal your heart to your spiritual master. So here, Maharaj Rahugana is revealing his heart to Jad Bharata because he has accepted him as his spiritual master. So he's saying this, body is filled with dirty things, kuda. And second thing is saying this, my vision has been bitten by the serpent of pride. Manahi vidashta driste. That there is pride in my heart because of this position. So usually when you have got a position, when you have got strength, when you are strong, in the last verse he's mentioning, in the last verse of last chapter he's mentioning, I'm as powerful as Lord Shiva, but I'm still afraid of Vaishnava Aparadh. So he's confessing that in the last. So he was very powerful king. And here he's saying, because of that power, because of that position as a king, there is pride which has entered into my heart. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned, Ishwaroham aham bhogi siddhoham balvan sukhi. So even though and this is the position of each and every living entity, 1614, it is mentioned, every living entity has got this, whether he is rich or poor, but he thinks I am the enjoyer. Everything is for my enjoyment. So even though we don't have any strength, even though we are not wealthy, we still any fame or beauty, even though we don't have any of those things, but still we think that Ishwaroham, I am the enjoyer, I am the bhogi, I am the Lord, I am the enjoyer. Siddhoham Balvan Sukhi, I am happy. But really everyone is suffering in this material world. And what is the topmost? So even if one is able to conquer all the material vices, so there is last thing which it's very difficult to conquer, is called pride. It is mentioned in Srila Raghunath Das Goswami mentioned in Manasiksha, Pratishtasa Drishtasa Swapacha Ramani Me Hridi Natet. And in the translation it is mentioned, why is it that deceit still lingers in the heart despite one's having given up all material sense enjoyment? So this deceit still lingers in the heart even though one gets rid of all the material enjoyment. One can become completely renounced, but this one thing, and this verse has been composed in order to answer this question. O mind, how can a pure divine love appear in the heart as long as this shameless dog-eating outcast woman? So this pride is referred to as shameless dog-eating, outcast dog-eating woman of desire for prestige is audaciously dancing there in the heart. So Srila Raghunath Das Goswami is mentioning that this pride is the last snare of Maya. Even though one can get rid of everything, but the pride does not go from the heart very easily. So one still lingers for this pride. And Srila Raghunath Das Goswami mentions that how to get rid of this pride. Therefore always remember and serve the immeasurable powerful commanders of the army of Sri Krishna. So just by the service to the devotees, one can get rid of this pride. So one has to serve the devotees. And this is a conclusion of this chapter also. If you read this chapter, I think this whole chapter is Jadbharat speaking to Maharaj. At the end, Jadbharat is giving different instructions to Maharaj Rahugana, and in the end he is giving this as a conclusion. If one wants to get rid of his pride, his material body, his suffering, the only remedy is to serve Guru and Krishna and the devotees of the Lord. And so this is the gist of this chapter. So two things Maharaj Rahugana confesses is, this body is kuda, and second he is mentioning this my vision has been bitten by the pride, bitten by the serpent of pride. And then he's saying, your words are cooling, like cooling waters, hima ambha, for one scorched by the heat. So when you are in the desert, when you are suffering the heat of the sun, all you want is some water, cooling water. Every morning we sing this verse, samsara dava nalalida loka, tranaya karuna gana ganatvam. So we sing this, that just as the cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the material afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. So by serving the spiritual master, one can extinguish this fire of material life. So same thing Maharaj Rahugana is mentioning, that this cooling waters, your words are like the cooling waters for one scorched by the heat. And then he's saying, proper medicine for one suffering from fever. So your words are like the medicine for one suffering from fever. Because he mentioned here twice, Aushadam and Agadam. Medicine has been mentioned twice in this verse. So he's saying, your words are like the medicine, Agadam or Aushadam, for one suffering from fever or disease. So this is one thing, a person has to come to this realization that one is suffering in this material world, one is diseased. Unless you know that you are diseased, you will not work to cure that disease. So it's very important that we understand each and every living entity, or at least ourselves, we are diseased. We have got some disease. And what is that disease? of, sorry? Bhavaroga, yeah, that is a disease, but forgetful of Krishna. And so we have to work towards, as Prabhupada mentions, there are only two things are required. Always remember Krishna and never forget him. And so this is the disease of forgetfulness of Krishna. Okay, and so I'll conclude with the last verse of this chapter where Jadbharata is giving very powerful instruction. He's saying that simply by association with the exalted devotees, anyone can attain perfection of knowledge. So just by associating with the devotees, we can acquire perfect knowledge. Second thing is mentioned, with the sword of that knowledge, one can cut to pieces the illusory association within this material world. So just by that knowledge that we acquire from the association of the devotees, we can cut through the pieces of illusory association within this material world. And then he's saying, through the association of devotees, one can engage in the service of the Lord by hearing and chanting, Shravanam and Kirtanam. So in the rest of the chapter, Jadbharata is emphasizing on the point of association of the devotees. So always because we see from his own life he has learnt one thing. He fell down because one of the things was he was not in the association of the devotees. And so he's in this chapter, which is like the conclusion of his whole understanding, is mentioning that the association of the devotees is the most important thing. One has to always seek association of the devotees. Okay, I'll stop here. If there is any comments or corrections or questions, you can take it. Yes, Mother.
Regarding the concept of antithetic of this liberation, regarding the concept of liberation, the living entity is called Nitya Baddha because he is eternally conditioned. So when one comes to Krishna consciousness, does it mean that Nitya Baddha actually ends?
Yeah, so when we are in this, we are called Nitya Baddha because we have been in this material world for such a long time that it's difficult to calculate the amount of time that we have spent. So something which is kind of too long, it tends to infinity. So infinity is something, a number which cannot be described, right? So that is why it is known as infinitely we have been in the material world, because it's for so long. But actually, as Srila Prabhupada mentions, like we all belong to, at one point we were in the spiritual world. And then when we perfect our lives, when we become completely, eradicate all the sinful reactions, then we go back home, back to Godhead. When we got love for Krishna, we just go back when we become liberated. So then yes, we are not Nitya Baddha in that sense. So it's just because we are in this material world for so long, we are called Nitya Baddha. Yeah. Okay, we'll end here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granth Raj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai.